Alright, I spent full 10 days pushing my RTX 5070 Ti to its limits, gaming, editing, benchmarking, and stressing it out like crazy. And today, I'm finally answering the big question. Should you upgrade? Well, this isn't just a numbers review. I've tested this beast across popular games, 4K editing on DaVinci Resolve, and other aspects of daily usage, just to see the real world difference. My name is Prithviraj and I create videos on productivity, tech, and life. So the first question is, why the 5070 Ti? Well, I was coming from the RTX 3080 and honestly on paper, this looked like a no-brainer. More power efficient, better frame generation support. I thought this might be the perfect sweet spot for 4K gaming as well as editing without spending 4080 money. Now while comparing it directly to my 3080, you can clearly see the difference. The vendor of my 5070 Ti is 3D, and for reference, I'm still using my old Ryzen 950-950X processor as it's getting the job done for me quite fine. I have paired it up with my Samsung Odyssey G7 monitor. It has a refresh rate of 240Hz, and of course nvidia G-Sync is on. So some of the games that we'll test out today is CS2, Valorant, Fortnite for regular FPS titles, and also we'll be working with games like Hogwarts Legacy, Cyberpunk 2077, Forza Horizon 5 and others at their ultra graphics settings to test them out thoroughly. Let's start with the basics. The RTX 5070 Ti is built on the nvidia's brand new Blackwell architecture, which is a big deal. It's a next step up from the ADL Lovelace cards that we saw with the 40 series. Now on paper, this new architecture is designed for better AI acceleration, faster rendering, and just more performance per watt. And honestly, it lives up to the hype. Looks-wise, the card that I tested had a clean design and surprisingly good thermals even during long sessions. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. I ran the Steel Nomad test on 3D Mark to check out the benchmarks. I got an average of 64.73 FPS at 1440p, and the performance was quite stable. Here are the entire benchmark result on 3D Mark. So if you wanted to geek out on those stats and performance, then here we go. Let's talk about DLSS 4. If you already have DLSS 2, 3 or before, you already know how much game changer that is. But DLSS 4 takes it up a notch. This card absolutely thrives at AI-driven upscaling and frame generation. The 5070 Ti comes with a 1406 AI TOPS, which basically means it can crank through AI workloads like a beast. Games that support DLSS 4 feel significantly smoother in titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Hogwarts Legacy. Enabling frame generation feels like switching from a system with double the raw power. It's nuts. Also, the loading times felt a lot shorter in some of the games, probably thanks to the combo of the faster VRAM and the better architecture. Now let's not forget the 5th gen tensor cores and the 4th gen ray tracing cores. These are major upgrades over the previous generation. Ray tracing is where I noticed a massive difference. Reflections, shadows and global illumination, it all just looks cleaner, sharper and more realistic. But what really impressed me was the performance. You don't need to drop down to potato settings to enjoy ray tracing anymore. Well, Cyberpunk with ray tracing at ultra and DLSS 4, still the gameplay is smooth even at 4K. That used to be wishful thinking unless you were 4080 or higher. The 5070 Ti handles that surprisingly well. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about the actual gameplay. And here's how it held up in few key titles. I have kept the FPS counter on from Steam settings, so you can check them out in the top right corner of the gameplay. But before we get into that, I would really appreciate if you could consider hitting that subscribe button, and I promise to keep bringing you more such videos. In Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p, that too with ultra graphics settings, ray tracing and DLSS 4 enabled, you can take a look at the graphics settings that I had set to record the gameplay. In 4K with frame gen, I still got around 55 to 65 FPS. Not bad at all. Hogwarts Legacy with ray tracing on ultra averaged around 75 to 85 FPS at 1440p, and it dipped to about 58 to 60 FPS in 4K. But it was still a complete joy to play. But I know many of you who only care about FPS titles, so I tested out games like Counter-Strike 2, Valorant, Battlefield 2042 and the rest. Many of you actually prefer playing FPS games at lower settings, but to test them out, I set them to max. Shadows, bloom and everything was enabled. I got 210 plus FPS while playing Counter-Strike 2, but that didn't really improve my skills, say live. And on Valorant, I was getting 200 plus FPS. And since I spend most of my time spectating others after I die, so yeah, during that time I was getting 350 plus FPS. So yeah, I can at least enjoy a higher FPS after I die. And in Battlefield 2042, I was getting an average of 120 FPS. The game still feels weird though, I'll be honest, but nevertheless, the visuals were really enjoyable at max graphics. I even tested out some older titles like GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 2 and a few more. And also, is this GPU GTA 6 ready? Well, we will find that out once it drops for the PC. But as per the other games from Rockstar, RDR2, GTA 5 as well as the GTA Definitive Edition, they all performed amazingly. And if you have been following my channel for a while, then you know how much I love F1. I was getting about 90 to 100 FPS at max graphics, and as usual, guess who won the race? So what's the takeaway? This card is made for high refresh rate 144p gaming, and also it can absolutely handle 4K if you're using DLSS. For my fellow content creators out there, the next part is for you. The RTX 5070 Ti features two 9th-gen NVIDIA encoders, which is honestly amazing for anyone who does a lot of video work and graphics. And also the nvidia G4 app lets you customize your GPU for getting better performance for editing workflows. Encoding times were noticeably faster in DaVinci Resolve when exporting 4K videos. I rendered a full 10-minute 4K video of mine with proper color grading, noise reduction, and thousands of transitions and effects, as you see in my video. But the thing is, it only took 4.5 minutes to export. For reference, my iMac M3 takes almost an hour for that, and this, my friend, is absolutely insane. It also comes with a 6th-gen NVDEC decoder, which means smoother playback for high-res footage. Even when you're scrubbing through 6K or 8K files, it will chew through those timelines like it's nothing. As that's one major issue that I usually face while editing my videos. Timeline scrubbing was really a pain, and I often had to lower the timeline resolution to work on my video properly. But thankfully, I didn't have to generate optimized media as often, and this simple thing saved me a lot of time editing. Everything felt a lot more smoother, and if you have a mouse with horizontal scroll like the Logitech MX Master, scrubbing through my timeline felt so therapeutic. Trust me on that, if you have used this before, you know how much difference it can make. Hence, if you're a YouTuber, content creator, or a streamer, this GPU will definitely make your workflow way more efficient. Alright, now let's talk about the memory situation, which is pretty immersive here. The 5070 Ti rocks 16GB of GDDR7 VRAM. That's a huge step up from GDDR6 or GDDR6X that we have seen in the last couple of generations. Not only it's faster, but it also stays cooler under load, and thus helps you reduce the latency both for gaming as well as creative workflows. Now pair that up with a ridiculous memory bandwidth of 896GB per second, and yeah, you've got some serious throughput. This kind of bandwidth that was once reserved for the top tier workstation cards, and it clearly shows. Even heavy games like RDR2 and Cyberpunk felt more stable in ultra settings, and also the textures were really clear at 1440p and even 4K. There were zero texture pop-ins or stutters, which used to be an issue on cards with lower VRAM or slower memory, especially for me as I was coming from the RTX 3080. Now let's talk about the stuff that people only care about once it starts causing problems, and that is the thermals and noise. During intense gaming sessions, the card stayed mostly under 72° C. That's pretty chill for a GPU this powerful, and in idle time or light workloads, it hovered around 35° Celsius. Also, the maximum GPU temperature you can go is up to 88° C, so you will be covered in that aspect. And speaking of fan noise, as this one really bothers me, and well, that was super quiet. Even during heavy gaming sessions, it never sounded like a jet engine trying to take off. And when the card isn't really doing anything, the fans don't spin thanks to the 0 RPM mode. Like in comparison, my 3080 starts to spin as soon as I boot up my PC. So if you're planning a quiet or minimalist build, this card won't ruin your vibe. Alright, we have covered a lot about this amazing GPU. Let's now answer the big question. Should you upgrade to the RTX 5070 Ti? As I've seen many negative reviews surfacing online. But those are mostly for specific use cases. But if you're a layman like myself and you're just looking for a new GPU, then let's talk about that aspect. If you're coming from a 20 series card or older, the answer is loud and confident. Yes, you will see massive gains in performance, ray tracing, editing speed, just name it. You will be able to clearly see the difference. If you're rocking a 30 series card like the 3060 Ti or the 3080 like myself, it's a bit more subtle. The performance boost is definitely noticeable, especially in 4K and creative work, but if you're not hitting the limits of your current GPU, you could rather wait. And if you have already got the 4070 Ti or higher, then yeah, you're good to go. For that aspect, it won't really change your life. But for a general use case, that's definitely worth the upgrade. But as I mentioned, if you're from an older generation and for general use case, that's definitely worth the upgrade. So that's my full 10-day experience with the RTX 5070 Ti. It's fast, cool, efficient, and surprisingly well-rounded for both gamers and creators. Honestly, it feels like a sweet spot in the Nvidia's 50 series lineup so far. Let me know what you think. Would you like to upgrade? Drop it in the comments. And speaking of gaming, if you're into gaming handhelds, then you will definitely enjoy the Asus ROG Ally. It's amazing for handheld gaming with the raw power of a proper gaming PC. Click here on this video, and over there I have shared my 1-year experience of using the Asus ROG Ally. See you there.